Thank you for being on fire for life, and thank you, all of you listeners and all you audience members, and whether you're listening in real time or another time. Marlon and I welcome your comments. We welcome your questions. The reason that I like to have this kind of format is I love the interaction from the audience. You matter. This is why we do this. Otherwise, Marlon and I would just be somewhere talking FaceTime or on the phone. We're wanting to show that our experiences in life have made sense, and we
Yes.
want to we want to share that with you. So we're not two people that want to convince you of that. We're such experts in so many fields. We want to tell you why. And most experts that I enjoy listening to tell you why, because of what they've walked through. And Marlon Rollins has walked through quite a bit in his life. And I met him in Orange County last year at a conference, and I went, "We need you. We need your voice out in the world." Though he's already very accomplished, but I wanted to be part of just being with him. And I mean, and look at him. My goodness. I mean, what can you do with that? So anyway, Marlon Rollins, so glad you're here. Thank you for saying yes and being on our show today.
Thank you so much for having me, Tample. And Happy New Year. I think we can still say that. You're allowed to do that, right?
I think so. I
I think
think
so.
we
I
can
don't know. The
say that as
24th
long as
is,
we want to.
uh, well, I'm just thoughtful about this new year. And again, just appreciated your words at the conference there in Costa Mesa, California. And just kind of the instant connection. I really appreciated what you were saying, and really that kind of imagery about kind of the soul and the heart and that healing and journey really spoke to me too. So that is an immediate life, and especially anybody who is thinking about the spiritual
Mhm.
realm and faith and how to walk through, how to use the faith to really endure, which can be sometimes stressful times. Um,
Mhm.
so thank you for having me. Thank you so much. Glad to do this and spread the message, because I think a lot of people this year too, I think, are really hungry about getting some direction, getting encouragement at a much deeper level than
Yeah.
I've ever seen before. Um, so I think there's a profound opportunity to really minister to the hearts of people. And I think that starts with truth telling and being honest,
Mhm.
because some people feel like they're alone and
Yes.
looking for some guidance, like really true guidance, not the artificial stuff, right? We're not here to
Right.
sell anything.
Right.
This is really about connecting to the souls of people and helping people reconnect with themselves by simply sharing.
Absolutely. And, for me, I mean, I'm just all about that. And it also can be fun. I
Hmm.
mean, there's times to dig deep, there's times to cry, there's
Hmm.
times to walk through the fire, but there's also times to celebrate
Oh yeah,
and just be, grateful that we survived ourselves. That's
I
just one of
got
my
that right.
my T-shirts by Temple Hayes is "I survived myself." Wow, what an accomplishment. Um, but I think one of the ways that I felt that you and I, connected on a like friendship soul level is that, to me, a lot of people focus on, well, I'm born and I get through life and then I fall over, or I'm so tired and I die, or, whatever. It's a start and an end date is
Hmm.
what I'm saying. And for me, in my experience, the birth is one experience, but it's the creation story that is where the rich things happen, because we may have made a soul agreement, or as Carolyn Mace would say, a soul contract, to come at this particular time in this particular way. But there's a creation story that has to happen to me for the deepening,
Hmm.
because if I had not walked through some of the unexpected, family stuff, homosexual, being disregarded, being ousted out of the religion, blah, 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 that created me. It created a broader me, a more accepting me, a more inclusive me, more compassionate. I had to,
Yeah,
if I was going to stay in this body.
yeah,
And you have an amazing creation story, and I couldn't wait to have you on so that you could talk about your story.
yeah. And I'd say, and I'm still in creation. I'd say for sure, it's
Oh,
like
me too,
a
forever. Yeah,
arrival.
right,
But you're right. It is kind of those what we call valleys or dark times, are really that we have an opportunity to discover who we're really meant to be, and come in better touch with our soul and better touch
right.
with our contract. Because I believe that many times we will walk through life in a survival mode,
Mm-hmm.
which is kind of like a cycle. We're just trying to get by. We're trying to make it. And in that, it leaves us constantly disconnected from who we're truly and what we really can do as a creative spirit, right? And it's almost takes the rejection and the hardships to allow us to come into ourselves fully in a way to
Sure.
surrender to it. Um, oh my God, I like it, as far as for me. I mean, I've had, um, I shared about my sister. My older sister of 2 years, Amber Rose, who died by suicide in December 31st in 2013, which just passed the 10-year anniversary of her death. And it's not,
Mm,
and I really look to celebrate her life more than anything. And what she was a nurse, as I mentioned, and being in the healing profession, she was so passionate about healing other people. And many times I find it really fascinating that we project out in some ways what we really need. And sometimes we're becoming,
mm-hmm.
we're surviving, and being in the profession of a healer of any kind. There's a notion of wanting to help others, but many times, we really need that for ourselves, and that same mission, that same drive, and same person. But sometimes we're not taught how to give it. So when I look back about our childhood and what led up to her passing, really sad. Um, it was us both trying to kind of escape a lot of uncertainty when we were young. I'm originally from Indiana, um, and kind of a small town. Um, our father is black and our mother is white, and we're growing up in a small town in Indiana, of the
Mm,
first children to be born. So we're not, um, you know, seen as fully accepted for who we are. Now, you might have some uncertainty. There's definitely that circumstance of not feeling like you really belong, and where do you really fit in. Um, and then, with father absence when I was younger, some instability in a home. And again, I'd say everybody has a story like that of uncertainty in the home. And when I think about trauma, and we use that word a lot now, that really means, in a lot of ways, emotional neglect. There's an element of emotional trauma just as much as physical or even sexual abuse that some of us get exposed to, sadly. And we went through that as kids, and our plight, our determination was to try to change that trajectory, to come out of that, and have something meaningful, to be somebody, to be valued, to be liked, to be
mm-hmm.
seen for who we are, and shake off um, kind of the stereotypes that people layer over you about what you're supposed to be because of the race that you were born into, or um, your gender identity, or whatever it is that you're born
Right.
into. The criticism that comes along with being accepted, and the seeking validation, and wanting your parents, and who are maybe not available and dealing with their own issues, right?
Mm-hmm.
So you just learn in your nervous system to kind of figure out how to survive. And when she passed away, I think she was 30, 36 at the time. Um, and it really made me take a deeper look about
Mm-hmm.
the fact that I'm surviving still. I've now lived as a survivor of a suicide. I'm a suicide loss survivor, my sister, and looking at our journey and realizing that she's not able to continue on. And I carry that, meaning I carry that, um, that pursuit with me to a certain degree,
Mm-hmm.
but not at a heavy burden, but just to recognize, to live in her honor. And so as far as the work is for me and my work as I've got a PhD in psychology and I'm a licensed psychotherapist and all those great
Mm-hmm.
accolades. And I was a therapist when she passed away, and I really struggled to deal with her her death because I couldn't get away from it because I was working in a behavioral health setting where I saw people in crisis who were suicidal, taking care of their kids, their mothers, their you know fathers, grandfathers sometimes, who were struggling, and to not be able to, as I thought at the time, save my own sister,
Sure.
made me feel, just very a tremendous amount of guilt. Like, what did I miss?
Mm-hmm.
And knowing what we had been through, um, I don't know, it just really broke my heart in a lot of different ways. And she also had a daughter, who um, was 13 years old at the time. And, obviously a traumatic event to lose your mother in that way. So now I'm a steward for her daughter, my niece, and I
Mm-hmm.
love her to dearly. And I know my sister was so worried about her, coming into her teenage years. If you have a young woman, I think it's natural for a mother to worry about that, or just a parent to worry about the children at large.
Mm-hmm.
So, anyways, that's one of the things that I picked up to say, I want to make sure my niece is okay. So, knowing that she was the most valuable person on earth. And I think that lie of not being good enough, that negative cognition, as you call it, that negative self talk,
Right.
when it can sadly become very loud to the point that we begin to believe it, really realizing that that's really not um, the origin of who we really are. But when you believe the thought of, I'm not good enough, I'm not lovable, I don't belong here, I'm a failure, those negative messages that can plague us, that we're trying to run
Mm-hmm.
from and try to escape, when they begin to catch up with us,
Right.
and sometimes overtake us in our darker times, and realizing that that's not who we really are. And so we have to go back and find out where that voice comes from. And I realized that with my sister's case, is that that voice was something that we were surviving when we were younger, and it sadly caught up with her in her 30s, and she fell victim to that. In addition to the stigma around the things we were using to cover up some of that pain, which is,
Sure.
drugs and alcohol, whatever we use to cope with the pain, to get away from that negative talk and try to convince ourselves that yes, I am worthy of love.
Mm-hmm.
So when people criticize people who are, suicidal or struggling in those spaces, you have to realize they're not being selfish and out to hurt other people. There's actually the belief that it's better off that they're not here. But to your point, when we sign that contract of showing up to live in the time and the season that we have, that
Yes.
your life has meaning, and the discovery sometimes comes through that adversity.
Mm-hmm.
And but again, we get confirmation, sadly, sometimes, of that negative voice
Sure.
from other people who are also hurting, and the
Right.
things we see on TV, like you're not good enough or your life doesn't matter, again, because of your race, your gender, um, your sexual orientation, really throws a lot of spears at the heart of people. And sometimes we're just not equipped to protect ourselves. But that's why community, and having community that's likened to you, is so important. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
and also doing the deeper work of where that comes from. So that's part of my pain.
Right.
Uh, and we talked, and I know that you shared a little bit. The part of um, my joy, my celebration, is being a kidney donor. And you
Yeah.
shared,
Well, let's hold that story for a
okay,
moment and kind of
okay,
breathe in this beautiful, rich and story that you have here. not in a way to keep dissecting it, but to kind of, give people taking it in,
Hmm.
a bit of time to process. Um, for me and my life experience, I would say that there are two things in life that I've seen that are very difficult for people to ever overcome. Now, I
Hmm.
didn't say it's not possible, and I didn't say people don't. And I'm not like the spokesperson of all humanity. But with
Hmm.
my experience, there's two things that are difficult. One is a parent that loses a child,
Hmm.
very, very difficult. Two is losing someone on the physical plane to suicide.
Hmm.
And that's a big one right there, and
Yeah.
unimaginable. And I will tell you, just so I'm not just someone that read a book or knew we were going to be talking today and listened to something on YouTube. I had two aunts kill themselves, um, and and one was because of religion. Almost killed me, but not. But because she divorced,
Mm.
and that was one, and then got into the psychiatric system of a lot of medicine and a lot of drugs, and who knows, what happens after that. um, and of course we know more now. This was like in 93, 1993. And then the other aunt, shot herself.
Mm.
But like you're saying, never really accomplished a level of worth. And it's very difficult because of it's like a computer window that's open
Hmm.
in your heart all the time. The what if and how, and that last conversation. And so in those ways I am very much familiar with that. And I like to say that life, if you look at life from the window of the rose, right?
Hmm.
And what's your sister's name?
Amber Rose.
Exactly. So if you look at life as a rose, it's beautiful. You have very few words to describe its beauty, and yet there's the thorns,
Yeah.
and they hurt.
Yeah.
And what I admire about you, and what I so much admired about you when I heard you, and I heard you sharing your story, is that, see, so many people will feel that pain and stop. They'll feel that pain and go, well, what do I have to say?
Hmm.
Or what could I possibly do? Or, this happened in my family, and it puts me in a whole other category. No, you did what takes the most courage, is you said, because this happened, because I've been hurt, because my sister hurt, because Indiana wants me, and Lord, I can't go back there. I don't know if you remember that song or not. Remember that?
I do.
Indiana wants me. Lord,
Hmm.
I can't go back there. I just
We
want
got a show
so
too.
so you are taking what we're talking about, this ongoing creation story, and you are doing something to help lay the groundwork that will spare others from needing to go to such measures.
Yeah.
And that is phenomenal, because you're not laying down. You didn't decide, well, to heck with it. I can't, I'm going to become a drunk. I'm just going to hang my head out. So I don't want to lose that in our conversation of the courage that it has taken you, to continue to do that. And I mean, even my own gayness in a small town and where I went to school, I wondered why people knew me. And And I look back and it's like, well, there were only 1,200 people in the town. It wouldn't take much, you know.
Right, to figure
But
it.
word got around. She's weird. She's out there. She's weird. She's out there. But as far as my gender, my sexual choice, or whatever, I could hide that. I didn't enjoy it. I don't like not living in the truth,
Hmm.
but I felt like I needed to do to survive.
Yeah.
You couldn't hide you,
No.
and that's I don't ever tell somebody that's faced race issues, oh, I know how you feel. I don't ever tell anybody I know how you feel. I more so say, I have no idea how you feel, but I feel for you.
Hmm.
But when it comes to race and mulatto and blend, back then in
Hmm.
small towns, I had a good friend that was white and her boyfriend was black, and it was, bless you,
Hmm.
bless you.
Thank you.
That that I know what it was like for me when people did discover in my family my gayness, but they didn't call it that. Back then, they did a homosexual assessment.
Hmm.
You know, let's do kinesiology. Are you, yes, strong? No, but you know it. I knew what it was like when people looked at me different,
Hmm.
and I know that look.
Yeah.
And on behalf of humanity, I apologize to you, Marlon. Truly,
No, I'm in.
I feel that in my heart. I apologize on behalf of, of humanity for the patheticness
It is.
of a set of
It
eyes
is. It is
that
pathetic.
look at you other than you are beautiful, and I'm glad you've lived long enough to see and own
Yeah.
your own beauty.
And thank you. And I, even want to encourage our listeners to understanding the beauty of your uniqueness.
Hmm.
So, we look at people who are not like us or unfamiliar to us as problematic,
Right.
uh, as outsiders, and you know, and it sends this message that you are not as important as you know this other group, of what is
Right. Right.
normal, right? For whatever the hell that means, right? You're abnormal, right? Whatever
Right.
it is that that makes you different. And when you really begin to embrace the beauty of your uniqueness, of the creation that you're walking in, I think it just gives you a profound amount of power. And yes, you'll still encounter, I could tell you multiple stories of issues that I've run into, that other people of color run into as well,
Hmm.
and other people with other differences run into, whether it's, ability or otherwise, to really whatever makes you different in this physical body that we know will
Hmm.
perish away at one point. Um, don't let that exterior cause the darkness of the soul, the inner of you, right?
All
It
right.
can be your greatest gift.
Exactly. Yes.
It's the window that you're looking through, and when people look back and they can't see it, you know, it doesn't mean how they're seeing you is true. All right. But you don't need to change your exterior to be something other. You can embrace fully the beauty that you are and celebrate your uniqueness, right?
Hmm.
Unapologetically, right? And with kindness, and to show something different. People's minds tend to
Sure.
always be stuck on what they think something is or what a group of people should be, right? But they actually miss out on the beauty of what that person really is.
Right.
But the only person that has to get it first is you, right? For you to see that the value that your life has, um, and understand that those cognitions of that you're running away from, the negative thoughts, are not yours, that they
Mhm.
belong to something else, right? That has been
Mhm.
unfortunately passed down to you. Um, so when the adversity comes, when the pain comes, like even when when I lost my sister, when that tragedy happened, um, I'd say my sister's like my soulmate in that regard. We
Yeah,
had that
of
brother sister
course.
connection, or a soulmate, because I believe you
Mhm.
have special connections with certain people in our life. Um, there I couldn't not but reverberate some kind of noise, and this is the message that I was wanting to convey, and still convey to people about not allowing yourself to actually emote and express your emotions as part of your healing journey, right?
Mhm.
I could have the stigma around suicide death, in particular, um, could have caused me to go quiet, where I didn't want to talk about it, right? I just hold my feelings, and the idea of me being a man and being a black man, and all the things where I can't be sad, but um, the more that I took the courage enough to actually share how I was feeling, whether I was crying or just sharing her story, I realized that I was connecting people. They connected with the emotion. They connected with the realness of the feeling. They didn't look at the exterior the same way. It shifted everything away from that, and we were just looking on the
Mhm.
honest of, like, I'm a human being, and there was a way to connect by seeing my soul, right, and showing that intentionally. Um,
Mhm.
and finding again ways to express that as part of that, and believing what this really meant for me, as opposed to turning into darkness and saying, because I know that because my sister died by suicide, that my risk for suicide will go up. Her daughter's suicide risk will go up because it has sent a message, a ripple, if you will, in our family tree that says you're unworthy, or this is a choice, or this is something. But there's so many other choices, so many different ways to grow, and we have to begin to discover that. And we only discover that if we begin to nurture ourselves with the truth that we are lovable, that you're doing the best that you can, right? That your life is valuable, that you are unique, and you have a special gift. You have a purpose. Your life has meaning,
Yeah.
and be connected to other people in a very special way. So when you begin to live into that, you really see that there is something more meaningful in spite of the tragedies that may befall us, as you eloquently mentioned before.
Well, you're modeling from such a different perspective
Hmm.
that to me you are transcending the family constellation. You are transcending that idea. You're modeling to your niece
Hmm.
and to your family system. And you're showing um, that the secret of life is not whether we live or die, it's the parts of ourselves we allow to die while we're living.
Hmm.
And you're showing that that doesn't have to be necessary.
Right.
And I think that that's the best we have. I mean, I find one of my greatest joys is modeling, being a role model to my goddaughter who's
Hmm.
listening to you talking today, Miracle. And that's the best we have. I mean, and I want to welcome so many people. We have Pari Patri that leads the Pyramid Spiritual Society, is a global gal, and she's tuning in. We've got some great people, an author, Deborah Nardi, and they're all tuning in to you today, my friend.
Thank
And
you. Yeah.
yeah, and just your gift and your blessing. And our producer, she wrote down. She posted. Da-da! Embrace your uniqueness in your creation story,
Yeah.
and you're spot on with that. And I again, it's more, isn't it? What so many people say is a cliche. It's not just what happened to us, and it's not just what we allow to happen through us, but it's what we do after that.
Yeah.
And it's like that to me is where we have choice. We may not have consciously chose any of this. I mean, I can't say I would have. I don't, probably not with you either, But
Mhm.
because this is what occurred in my life, I want to use it for the betterment of others.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
know, I want to use the storytelling. And people will say, do you have to talk about that? Or when I was on the circuit, they would say, do you really have to talk about that you are a recovering alcoholic? Yes, I do. I do have to talk about it. And if you don't want me to talk about it, then I can go, on another speaking circuit. But I do have to talk about it because the people that are offended about it is probably because they have a problem. And
Mhm.
it's part of my life story. I'm not going to stand up there to talk about stress management and wear the fancy suits and the nice heels and the nice purse and go, look at me. I'm going
Yeah.
to say, I really need you to see the other side of what life has been. So I know that you also, it's like, oh, God bless you. And what's interesting about this, and it's very obvious to people listening that this is not a script because I'm kind of pulling it down. um, I almost my dad had cancer in three areas of his life, and I thought at one time that I was going to be the one asked to donate a kidney.
Mm.
And I never was able or needed to realize that because of other factors having nothing to do with me. But I know that's a big thing to start thinking about, and so all I know is what it's like to think about it, let alone to go through it. So a man that, here you are again, I tell you, and tell us the story about how you came to terms with donating a kidney to
Yeah.
give life.
Yeah. And again, it was, and I will say this of because it really gave me this personal glimpse of what healing really is. Healing is all about connection, whether it's internal connection or external connection with other people, right?
Yes.
And where the opposite disease is disconnecting. Any type of disease, whether it is a chronic disease like cancer or kidney failure or alcoholism, or suicide, whatever cause of death or disease that we're experiencing, trauma is disconnecting, even cognitively. It's a disconnect. Things we call addictions are disconnect. So healing
Hmm.
is that reconnection to who we are. So in this kidney donation, it was truly an example of what healing in way of connection was. Because when I was um, one of the things that gave me a lot of direction and foundation as I grew up was actually getting into church and getting into ministry and surrendering to really the calling that I had as a minister, trying to figure out what is it that I'm supposed to do. And it was being kind of embraced by a connection of community of what was called the Commission of African American Men. It was in
Mm.
the church, and there I met my pastor, and he, was the organizer of this other men's group. Well, really, they took me in as and mentored me as basically his son and as a brotherhood.
Hmm.
And it was there that I really came into um, understand what love was, support was, and also had role models of what it meant to be educated and to be a black male and all those kind of things, and being taught um, and
Were
nurtured.
you estranged? Were you estranged from your dad at the time?
Yeah, at the time, yeah, he had left when
Hmm.
we were like, and I was probably 6 or 7 years old. So he wasn't around, and my sister and I were just kind of making our own way. My sister was emancipated when
Sure.
she was 16 from my mom, and then I had moved out when I was 15 to go to like some private school
Okay.
because I was a smarter kid, but I didn't really have much guidance. I was just trying to get out of the situation that we
Right.
had up in.
I don't
Um,
know. I don't know how you feel about it, but being in a woman's group was one of the best things that ever happened in my life. And I would advise, and I'm thinking you would do the same for those
mhm,
listening or for
yeah,
those that are going to share this with your friends. It's one of the healthiest things I've ever done in my life is to
yeah,
be with sharing those stories and realizing I'm not so odd and weird, and except in ways that I choose to be, that can be a lot of fun. Um, but all of that. So anyway, so you really bonded with
Yeah.
these men, and
Again, to
you
your
felt
point.
more validated and
Yeah,
less broken.
healing
And
and connection, healing and
yes,
community. Exactly what you're
yes,
describing. I run a men's group called the Man Cave, and it's all about creating a space for men to connect and heal.
sure.
So, anyways, and I still take that because, then later on, some 15 years later, around the same time that my sister was going through her emotional mental health crisis, a year prior to that, my pastor, my father, I call him my father because he's been a father to me growing
Hmm.
up. He went into kidney failure. He had worked and worked and worked to help other people, and it was just overcome with illness. He had lost his mother and grandmother a few years prior to both the cancer within a short period of time, and he himself started to um, be overtaken with a kidney failure, and it took some long time to get diagnosis. But anyways, he fell into a kidney crisis and a kidney failure crisis, and he kept having strokes. And anyways, went on for a good year. Even my sister was actually his nurse for a while. She ran her own home healthcare business,
Wow.
and she was his home health aide because taking him to a nursing home, it just wasn't working. And mind you, he was in his mid 50s at the time, so this was
Oh
like
my gosh, so young.
young, yeah, young, but had dedicated his life to service and serving others. And I think to the point where, he had given so much um, and taken on so much that, anyways, it brought him to this point where he felt like maybe it's better for him to leave because, as he saw it, his soul was ready. He had served, and but for me, I was like, I'm still walking on this journey, and I remember praying again deeply, saying, "What can I do in
Mm.
this situation to help?" And there's very few times I believe that the higher power or God will speak to you in different ways. And I remember just getting that whisper in my spirit of donate a kidney. You're like, just in that moment of listening, like, what can I do in this moment? Now, mind you, he had siblings, but the process of being not only being a match, but just being approved to donate a kidney is extensive. The amount of exams that you have to go through. And so I told him, I said, hey, listen, God told me, or I was feeling my spirit that I'm supposed to donate a kidney to you. And
Wow.
he kind of laughed. He was like, don't do that. But I announced it in church, and I'm like, yes, I'm going to do this. And really bold about it almost. And, um, I went through the process of getting to it, and lo and behold, here I am a match.
Hmm.
And they're still telling me, well, maybe, you're not, you still have to find out, do you have a kidney to donate? There's so many things you have to go through. So ultimately, yes, I was able to donate a kidney to him, actually. And on December 31st, the same day that my sister died, was his first birthday. His birthday was on December 31st. So that year was kind of the spiraling of my sister's um, mental health crisis, in addition to my own emotional crisis. Our biological father also we had found out that he had died early that year, and there was always this hope that he would return. And I was even more impressed at that point to say, let me make sure that I can follow through with this kidney donation, which took me through
Yes.
my own kind of emotional crisis, which we probably don't have the time to go through here. But I talk about it in my book, Healing the Impoverished Mind, Building Resilience Through Adversity.
Hmm.
But ultimately, I went through the kidney donation. He's now 10 years with this kidney, and he's doing
With
very
the
well
Marlon
with the
kidney,
Marlon kidney.
the
I'm doing
Marlon Rollins kidney.
Marlon Rollins kidney, and he's doing well. I'm doing well. It's just the saddest part was my sister leaving, but it was this also the
Mm.
celebration of life, and it's just a matter of what we begin to focus on.
Wow.
And
Yes.
what I learned about the kidney donors is about over 109,000 people on the kidney donation list in the United States, and
Whoa. Wait a
yeah,
minute.
and a
There's
hundred
109,000 people on the kidney donation list.
yeah, waiting for a kidney,
Wow.
and
Wow.
so I realized that it's such a profound. I went through to a kidney donation kind of fundraiser, if you will, and
Mm-hmm.
they call a kidney donor an earth angel.
Oh yeah,
And they
yeah,
call you an earth angel. So like I had these people applauding, like, thank you, you know, and I'm standing up and I'm realizing, and I'm looking around the room of other people that have received a kidney. And if you really think about it, it's when you're able to give somebody what they call a second chance at life,
mm-hmm.
it's not just them, but it's their children and their spouse and continues to live on. So
Yes,
it's way more than just the kidney and that one person. It impacts generations. You know,
of
I had
course,
witnessed other
yes,
recipients whose father could live on another 10 years for their kids that they would have, you know, they could have died at the age of 7, but now I have my dad, you know, and I'm 18, 19, a full to an adulthood, you know, instead of dealing with the tragedy of that kind of loss. And that's completely preventable through the technology of science now that we can donate kidneys. Um, so seeing to hold that space of being understanding healing not at an emotional level, at an actual physical level, and at a
yes,
spiritual level, um, and putting that together as being transformative, really embracing what your purposes can be. Like, if you don't feel like your life has meaning, donate a kidney. I tell people sometimes because you
right.
immediately that organ donation, whatever tissue, is going to add the life of somebody else who maybe has almost ready to give up,
Mm-hmm.
right? And they feel like maybe I should go, but when they get that treasure of a second chance, it just completely transforms not just them, but everybody that's around them, right? So I get to watch my dad, you know, talk with his nieces now and talk with his sisters and brothers, and sometimes I just sit back because they know what that experience was like for almost
Sure,
losing him, and now I'm like, isn't this beautiful that
right.
he's able to continue on and add these connections and see the grandkids and great grandkids that are born into the family and be a part of that, you know, as a positive force. And it just, and then my sister's daughter, who experiences trauma, she just had a baby last year, and the baby's name is Amelia Rose, named after my sister Amber
Oh
Rose.
well,
And she is now 5 months old, and she is the most darling, beautiful thing. And it just gave me a whole new perspective. So as I was coming up with the anniversary of her death this year, I revisited how powerful it is to make sure, Temple, that we tell people that we love them, that we
yes,
share with them that how valuable they are, that their life
yeah,
has meaning, and that we can show up and be compassionate. It doesn't mean we have to go through everything, but to know
right.
that they are cared for and to help somebody see that within themselves in their darkest time.
I'm going to go a step further too, because um, when this little girl showed up in my life, when she wasn't quite 2 years old, and I was a spiritual leader in Florida at the time, and they came every week. And I won't get into the fullness of the story because we don't have that much time. But the bottom line, it was soul connection, it was palpable, it was permanent. And I knew that I would be her in her life as long as I lived on this earth. I would find pleasure and great humility. Okay. And I was aware that she was in my life. I was there that she brought me gifts. I was aware that I was bringing gifts to her and her family and all of that, her mom. But the other part, and this is the part that I found so fascinating, is that is it Bruce Lifton or Greg Braden? One of them says, so we just gave both of them a shout out, that, you know, it's ages between 0 and 6.
Mhm,
And that's when we're kind of shape shifted.
mhm,
So, what's going to be, in my humble opinion, interesting for you is to watch the shaping, because if it offers you the medicine it offered me, spiritual medicine, I had healings because I would see how people were attempting to program that little girl. And I would step in and go, oh, no, no. Oh, no, no. Oh, no, no. Don't ask. Don't say what's wrong with you. Oh, no, no. Say what's right with you. Oh, no, and so it's a double gift
Hmm. Hmm.
for you and for her mother, your
Yes.
niece,
Yes.
because you have this amazing chance
Hmm.
to work with. I always say to people, we're playing a part in a tribe of a child that's either going to remain childlike or childish for the rest of their lives. Why don't we listen to a class about self-esteem, or about how to set the playground for greatness? And one of the things I learned years ago, when you talk to children, like if they say, "Well, I made my bed," instead of saying, "Oh, I'm so proud of you," say, "That must make you feel good about yourself."
Yeah. Yeah.
Little things like that. And
To
so
reaffirm.
anyway, I'm
I love
just
that.
excited for you and your family, because you're breaking the family constellation system. You're breaking that you're decoding, as
Yeah.
Judy Wilkins Smith says, you're decoding that emotional DNA, and that's you got a big tall job, and you're doing
Yeah.
it very, very, very well.
You
How's your
know,
book doing? How's
uh,
your book doing?
really well. There's more to this story, and I know we can't get into, so I'd encourage people to
Well, we just
read.
need to do a part two. That's all.
Yes, well, yeah,
Another time.
and
Yeah,
I'm working on a second book now, and
of
when we do
course
a
you
part
are.
two, do a part two, we're going to talk about that book too, because there's
Good.
a whole other journey after that journey. Um, that one I'd say has been incredibly not. It was healing for me because it's allowed me to connect to people and allow and see people connecting to themselves as they consider their own purpose
Right.
and really their meaning of life and seeking themselves at a deeper level. And I wrote it in 2021, right after COVID. I needed to get the whole story out, and it was really a fulfillment as I saw it as prophetic. And
Right.
I was super anxious about putting it about because it required me to be very vulnerable. And I was, I'm a healthcare executive and I have all these fancy titles and whatnot. But what the truth was, like, we need a world of more compassion. And if you're in a position of leadership, I think there's a responsibility of loving courageously and being even more authentic. And so to
Yes.
step into that fully of letting go of, like, maybe what, as the little Marlon might be scared of what people might think about him and want people to, you know, to just say he's okay. And like, I can do that for myself. And
Hmm.
but it's been met with so much love. Like, my mom's read it and my grandmother's read it 4 or 5. She's 95 years old, bless her heart. I mean, she's so and to see it to resonate with the rest of the family, because it really shakes off this idea that there's things we need to hide and there's shame, and to tell your
Sure.
truth, and it opens up a whole nother perspective. So that's the goal, is that it really connects. Healing is connection, disease is disconnection. And to heal us, to heal other people, it's about connecting on other levels and just seeing you where you're at. Let me be present with you, and I don't need to
Yeah.
alter it, give you
And
a
I have a
reflection.
whole different, I have a whole different feeling about that, as well as many, many people I've talked with through the years. It's like, certificates, certifications, titles, they're all really impressive. But we're kind of outgrowing that story in so many ways. Okay, that's impressive. Um, just like films, that it's expert, 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 degree, degree, degree. I'm not making light of that. I know that people go through a lot to get the frames and, hang them on the wall and all that. And I'm not making light of that. But if I'm going to an expert, it's not how many things are after their name.
Yeah.
It's what they've done.
Yeah, and
It's what they've
that's
walked through.
that's what
And
matters.
so I feel about it the opposite way, that you, of all people, would have people's respect, not, "Oh my goodness, I had no idea about that." I would go like, "Wow, he's somebody I would listen to because he's actually lived in it."
Mhm.
That to me is where people are now. they're not looking to see how long your bio is. They want to know, what have you lived through? What have you,
Yeah.
survived? And
You
you
know,
are just a pleasure. And you got TJ Woodward tuning in to you today. So that
oh,
shows you how
hey,
special you are.
yeah, that's right.
All
He's from
right.
Indiana. He knows. Good to see him.
Well, we just need to have you back. That's
Yeah,
all.
that's all. That's nothing wrong with
We
that.
need you back and need to continue part one, part two, part three. Yeah, you
I think,
are such an amazing human, and I really um, I'm so glad that we have met, and because of TJ,
yeah,
and
thank you
that
too.
our journey will continue. And do you live in LA?
I
I've
do.
asked
Yeah.
you this. Okay. There's this huge center now. Two brothers bought St. Mary's up on the mountain,
Hmm.
like I want to say 37 acres. It's the Empath Center.
Ooh.
There's a place for you right there. Look it up.
Okay.
Or if you can't find it, email me and I'll send you the information, okay?
I sure will. I'm gonna look it up.
I mean, wow.
Hey.
That's a place for you right there.
Okay.
Put your little hang your name on a door. There you go.
Okay. Okay. I
Not
gotta.
that you don't have enough going on, but
That's okay.
truly it's been my pleasure to be with you today, and I know that others feel the same way, and I know that there's such a need with mental health and things that are needed that I see people sharing
Hmm.
this story and this podcast with many. Thank you
Good.
so much,
Thank
dear
you
one.
for spreading the word, and thank you for giving me a place to talk about my heart and
Absolutely. Absolutely. What else is there? And to all of our listeners, like I said, whether you're tuning in currently or tuning in later, please take the time and share our podcast with others. That's why we do it. Otherwise, Marlon and I would just be hanging out over at the beach. So share
so,
the stories, right? And bless you all.